I'm originally from Italy and I moved to UK to live with the man I loved. Our relationship and then marriage didn't work out, and so I had to face divorce. At the same time, I was also made redundant at work, so I had to face a career change as well. In a very short time, I found myself without an income, without a family, social background, and on top of everything else, I knew that I had to do something to change my work because it wasn't satisfying anymore. To face divorce is already difficult with some support in your own environment, but I didn't have all that and I had to face it alone, so it was a very testing journey indeed. After the legal process finished, after 2 years of hell, I had to face my healing journey, so that was another challenge for me. In the middle of all this, I came across the opportunity to join an expedition to go to Antarctica to face fears and limiting belief, and I decided to enroll. For me, the idea of traveling to such a faraway place and also to see a continent of such beauty, it was so irresistible. Especially, I wanted to test myself and I wanted to find myself again because I felt lost. So I enrolled, and when I went on the journey, I was tested indeed, and I tell my whole story and what happened down under in the freezer of the earth in my book Antarctic Odyssey, A New Beginning. The journey was a real initiation for me because life threw at me the unexpected, and so I had to face another challenge during the journey. After coming back from Antarctica, I also traveled on my own through Patagonia to see the Andes in Argentina and in Chile, and I even went to Easter Island. That for me represented a bit like the unreachable place, the dream place, because it's so far and remote. In a way, quite similar to Antarctica. When I came back to UK, I had another challenge. I had to face another crisis. If I had found part of myself that I've lost on the way while traveling, when I came back to my normal environment, which was in UK, I couldn't find myself. So that was another challenge, and so I started another soul searching process. In the middle of this process, I found out that actually one of the things I really wanted to do in my life was to learn to fly and become a pilot. So what do you do when you find out your passion or such a vibrant passion of yours? You have to go for it. And so I did. I moved out of London, where I used to live back then, and I searched for a place where I could learn to fly. Also, at the same time, I had to decide what was that I wanted to learn to fly, and that was another challenge in itself. But by serendipitous situations, I had the opportunity to fly in a small plane, in an autogyro, in a glider, and even in helicopter. And that kind of helped me in my process of becoming clear on what I wanted to learn to fly. At the same time, I also became clear of my life call, which is empowering women and by educating them to the feminine awareness, the feminine consciousness, and how it operates in the female body. So again, that was another challenge in itself because I had to find out how to put this into actions. But again, when you found out a passion of yours, you have to act upon it. You can't just leave it. It's a challenge and it's also a pleasure on the other side, but you still have to go through the fear process that always comes up. By choosing my dreams and saying no to a life that wasn't fulfilling me anymore, little by little I'm becoming a flying inspiration. a real flying inspiration, and also the woman that always wanted to be born as Gabriella Guglielminotti Trivell is coming. Going through the divorce and facing the state of my relationship and also of my marriage was necessary, because I had to find myself again. In a way, in the process, I've lost part of my identity, considering that I left my country. I started a new life in London with a person that I barely knew really. I met him while I was working in the Maldives, and I didn't know him well. So I chose to do this because I wanted it. But in life, you don't know what something is until you go through it and you experience it. So after experiencing it, I realized that my life wasn't satisfying, and I couldn't really go any further because this type of life was killing me. So I had to make a decision and face the unknown, and so I did. Then after the divorce, it was time to get to know myself, because I partly lost myself in the process. And for me, traveling was one way to do this. I needed to feel my spirit soar again, and I had lived a life that it wasn't representing me, and I was feeling like it wasn't satisfying. So saying yes to my spirit and go traveling, it was for me a big deed. Also, I inside myself, I wanted to face my fears, and I wanted to move beyond that. That was very important to me, because I had lived in a very long period full of fears. So Antarctica served me quite well in this respect, because it was a good test for me right then. Also, one thing that I acquired in that journey was that, once you say yes to your spirit and you allow yourself to expand, then you can't really shrink back to who you were. I tell more in depth about my journey, my challenge in Antarctica in my book, Antarctic Odyssey, A New Beginning. And so from that, I can understand why when I went back home in UK, I couldn't fit there. I couldn't fit. It just wasn't possible. I had to follow my heart. So in a way, I can understand why going through that crisis made me realize that I wanted to learn to fly, because it was something that I always wanted to do. So it was actually listening to my heart again. And say yes to becoming a pilot. Learning to fly itself, it's an experience that it was a very good metaphor for life, because you learn every time you're in the air, and the experience never ends, really. It's like life. So again, it was saying yes to go for life. Then also thinking of the other thing that happened to me was discovering my life purpose. Again, that's another test on why it entails the responsibility to act accordingly to your life purpose, your what you want to do on a daily basis. So it becomes impossible to go back to the old you. You have to do something on a daily basis to move forward and to go towards what you want to implement and what you want to bring into your life and in the life of others. When you face a life crisis like a divorce, the process really makes you become very aware of who you are, and at the same time you also become aware who are the right people that you want to relate to. And also the right people you can share your projects and thought with. You become aware that you are vulnerable, and knowing that you can be wounded very easily, it really helps you to protect yourself, and protecting yourself becomes paramount. So especially like in my case, if you have crazy plans, it's even more important, because if you disclose your plans to somebody who is not similar-minded type of person, it will destroy them, and for you it will be even more difficult to regain momentum and energy and hope and enthusiasm. So, fundamental is to surround yourself with people who are not detractors, but they are people who really are good supporters. And I have to say, the other thing I also learned is that not necessarily your next of kin are the best people to share your project with. So all in all, I would say a very important lesson. It would be audacious, adventurous, and inspiring. Also, I think the name Flying Inspiration suits me quite well. Well, during the divorce process, I was determined to have justice, and also I wanted to honor my values as a woman. So I had no choice by going through the process itself. So necessity was my motivation. So before my Antarctic trip, in the 9 months that preceded my departure for Antarctica, what kept me motivated was the fact that I wanted to be fit, because I didn't know what would happen in Antarctica, and so I had to get ready. So I did everything that I could possibly think to do to be able to be in top form, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, of course. So the need to serve my body and to be in top form, that was kept me motivated in those 9 months before leaving for Antarctica. When I went back to UK, I went through my second crisis, basically my crisis post-trip. And then the need of understanding what was going on with me, and to remain sane mentally, it was what kept me motivated in going through the process to understand what was happening. So the need of self-discovery, remaining sane, mentally and emotionally balanced, really was what kept me going during my second crisis. Then when I realized that I wanted to learn to fly, I had to find a way really to go for it. So to give you an example, I had to understand what I wanted to learn to fly, where and how, and the cost, etc. So that kept me going, because I had to give an answer to all these questions. Also, having discovered this passion of mine was the key factor that kept me on the ball every day, so that I could make this dream of mine possible and make it happen. So the big force behind it all, it was actually my passion, following my passion of knowing that I could and I wanted to learn to fly. So as far as my work, my life goal of empowering women through educating them to the kind of feminine consciousness and how it expresses itself in the female body, I have to say that what keeps me motivated is the fact that I need to find my inner motivation first on a daily basis, and also this means that I have to find a way to get out there and reach women, which is not really easy, considering that educating women about the menstrual cycle It's quite difficult because it's a taboo subject, but this work needs to be done, and this work chose me. So in a way, the way it feels for me is almost like I have no choice but finding a way to reach women and help them out. So what keeps me motivated? Well, my spirit, definitely my spirit. And when I feel low, that's what I go back to, asking for help to my inner spiritual guide. Good question. Well, my advice to others is the following: follow your heart. Listen to what heart says to you. Your heart knows. And I would add the closing line of my book, Antarctic Odyssey: A New Beginning, which is: life is a journey of the heart. The mind is only a helper. The soul is the adventurer. So to sum it all up, I would say my fearless story is a story full of fear, but I go through it and I come out of the other side. So my fear becomes my dear friend, and I become fearless and I live fearlessly. You can do it too.